One of our viewers asked me, what palette would you choose for winter colors? Well, let's take a look at my palette for that. So what we'll keep in mind here is that my winter palette might be different from your winter palette because I live in the foothill mountains of the northeast Georgia. And in the winter, we have almost nothing but grays because all the foliage falls off the trees. Most of the grass turns kind of a yucky olive, if not brown. And so the colors kind of go away. In other areas, though, for winter, you might have different colors. So I'm going to address the winter colors that I'm familiar with, and then those of you whose winters are very much like ours might pick up on this and try this palette. Now, I like a limited palette for winter colors. Well, I like a limited palette for all my paintings, in fact. But my favorite palette for winter colors is simply to find a green, a good winter green, the Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red, and the Gamlin Ultramarine Blue. Just those three colors. Usually, I might add other colors to them, but just those three colors, of course using the Gamlin Titanium White. Now the reason I like those colors, by the way, the green I have here is kind of a sap green I make from the Rembrandt Viridian, about 3.5 parts Rembrandt Viridian mixed with Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red. I find that using the Rembrandt Viridian and Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red in combination can give me variations of greens that work really well. And so that's the green I start out with here. Also, those of you who study with me know that I also like to build what I call a value line palette. We have another quick tip about building the value line palette. That simply means for each color I use, I also build the values of that color that I'll be working with so that I don't have to do that particular mixing as I'm moving along. So that's a beginning start. Now, so I always like to start out with the green, as I said before, and then the reason I like the Transparent Oxide Red and the Ultramarine Blue is that they act as complements together. They will give me those neutrals that I see as I'm observing the nature we have here. So let me show you. I'm not going to do a total demonstration, but I just want to show you a little bit of what we have available. Now I have here a photograph that I took just down the road from where I live, and that's just to observe what we actually see in the wintertime here. You can tell the grasses are very, very, very dull. You see that there's no foliage on the trees, so the trees are always gray. When we have the blue sky, that's always kind of an addition. Gives us kind of an environment to cast a winter landscape in, which is always a good thing to do. And then another place where we can play with color is the fallen leaves. Now, in the early winter, the fallen leaves are a little brighter. As the winter moves along, those leaves get a little duller, but we can still play with those when we're doing the painting. So, first of all, let's just look at what we have available here. Now, with these two colors, the Gamlin Ultramarine Blue, and then I pull the Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red into it, I get this wonderful variation. Now I'm going to show you. If I pull in terms of amounts, if I add a little bit more in proportion of the oxide red, I get this wonderful gray right here. Now if I add a little bit more white to that, so that you can see it a little bit better, here's another version of it. You see, that's a really, really nice neutral. Now if I move even further into the oxide red, let's get a little bit more white over here. Now come a little bit closer over here. If I move even further, a little bit more in proportion to the oxide red than that, I can get a little warmer gray, you see, like this. And that's a darker version, and then we can have a lighter version of that to show you right here, a little bit lighter version. Give even a more, let's get about 3 values of it for you. And so that you can kind of see what options we have there. And then if I can take that same mixture and move it even more, or bring even more of the transparent oxide red into it, I get even a warmer gray, a warmer neutral. See, here we go. This is even a warmer neutral. Now that begins to say to me that is a good neutral to begin with for working all of those fallen leaves on the ground. And then you can see I can move into that oxide red even further, and I can get an even brighter neutral. Now we can see that with this brighter neutral, if I'm looking at those dead leaves, I can add more zip and more color just by throwing a little bit more of that higher intensity of neutral. In other words, I can take the transparent oxide red at that same value level, take the same transparent oxide red, just add a little white to it, and I can get, let's get that just a little bit closer in value so that you can see a really, really good comparison of those two. Here we go, right here. There we go. Now you see, by adding the transparent oxide red into that warmer version, I have kind of giving a little bit more punch. And that's what you can do. That's what can make winter painting fun. It's when you take those grays, you're not just stuck with those grays, but you build those neutrals, and then you can raise the intensity of those neutrals just a little bit, have some of the neutral color surrounding it, and then that begins to give a more interesting color. Now I want to go the opposite direction and show you, and we're still working with those two colors. I'm going to show you now we can get a cooler neutral if we take the transparent oxide red and change the proportion to where we have a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. I'll go right above it right here. Then we get a cooler neutral. This is a little bit cooler than the one below it right here. Now watch what happens if I add of the same value. If I add a little bit of the warm into that cool, you see what happens? Then we get something a little bit more interesting. And all of that just from two colors. So we can see there that we can begin to blend in the forest, especially areas where there are dead leaves still clinging to trees in the forest. We can begin to play with those two colors, and we can go even further and get the blue even, or the neutral, even cooler. We have a little bit cooler. So I'm going to lighten that up just a little bit so you can see it better. Get that neutral a little bit cooler and a little lighter. There we go, right in there. Right here. Let's go right over there. There we go. There is the neutral cooler. And then if we could take that, now that cooler neutral, take the warmer neutral, now we begin to see some exciting stuff happen. Now I'm not showing you exactly where to put it, I'm just showing you that you can get some really wonderful varieties of neutrals in the cools and in the warms between these two colors. Now add to that, if you take a neutral mixture of these two and you pull the green mixture into it, what you're going to do here is just end up with a green. Now see, now we have a more neutral green. And this is more the color, or more closely the color of the greens that we see here in the wintertime. So now we can surround that, pick up with the neutral again, surround that green with a little bit of the neutral. We could actually surround the green with a little bit of a cooler portion of the neutral. There we go. Now we begin to get some variation of that. You see how much more interesting that makes that. And now we can give it a little bit more, give just a little bit more of the intensity of green. We can just add an accent. Let's get that a little bit lighter. I'll move over into this lighter section of green right in here. Yeah, a little bit more of the intensity. There we go, right there. And that gives us a little bit more of the accent of the green that we can raise then the interest and create a little bit more color than we see. So with these three colors, and then I'm just giving you just an idea to get you started. If you try with these two colors and with the winter mixes, and one other thing before I start, I almost forgot about this part of it, and that is the variation in value, which is so important to color. I've given these mixtures all in one value. I've given them all to you in middle value, but you can get the darker, you can get really wonderful warm darks by using the ultramarine blue with the transparent oxide red and not adding any white to it. Now there you go right here. You see how nice, what a nice warm dark neutral that ends up being right there. And if you want a cooler dark neutral, then here it is right here. There's a cooler dark neutral. So once you add the really dark darks in with the middle value neutrals of mixing variations of these colors, you can begin to find all kinds of variations. It kind of makes you excited about taking your palette and going out in the wintertime to do some plein air painting. Now, if you found this quick tip helpful, check out our full-length videos on dianemize.com, where we have quite a variety of video tutorials for you. And if there's something that you'd like for me to do a quick tip on, if there's something that you've got a question about or something that's giving you trouble in your painting, leave a comment right down here and we'll be happy to put it on the schedule. There's your quick tip.